line. We did Wellness Wednesdays for 2 years, every Wednesday, and Ken would say, "Hey, good or bad, send it to us. We can handle it." And that's kind of the that's kind of the way it's like I played quarterback for 16 years. And then right after I finished playing quarterback, I went and coached at New Mexico State University, coached football there. Let me tell you something. If someone has a negative thing to say about the show, it ain't going to be the first time I've ever heard somebody um, say something negative. So if you got something you want to get off your chest or share about it, go ahead. If you want to bring up a topic that you want to talk about, go ahead. And if you want to go back, we started this thing September 1st of last year. That's what I'm saying. We get this month knocked out this August, and we've completed an entire year of doing this show. And I can't wait because I just know that the second year and the third year and the fourth year are just going to get better. I got a feeling that we're going to get it worked out. We're going to get a lot of our kinks worked out, and the show is just going to continue to get better. So, and what does that mean for you? It just means that you just get more cutting edge information. You get more down to earth explanations of health. You get the things that what I'm trying to do is take uh, very complicated subjects. Like this last night, we were talking about the pathways between the cerebellum and the cortex in the brain. And we were talking about how the brain was talking to the body, and we were talking about the visual system. Last 2 nights, we've been doing that. 3 nights, I guess. Uh, yeah, not on Monday night. So Tuesday and Wednesday is when we did the eyes. And so we're trying to take really complicated stuff and share it with you so that you understand what's going on inside your head. What is going on inside your head, right? There's if people just if they could figure that out, I guarantee you the whole world would be better. But last 2 nights, we talked about those pathways because we use the eyes a lot in our office to try to help our patients. We really do. We try to get those eyes moving, try to get those eyes up. And if you're wherever you're sitting right now, or wherever you are listening to the show, you should just think about putting a line right across your nose, and then just right between the tip of your nose and your eyeballs. If you could just put a line right between the tip of your nose and your eyeballs, and just call that the horizon line, and just see if you could just get your eyes up. Just look up for a minute and just see what's up there. And when you're wearing bifocal glasses, you guys that are over 50, that sometimes can be very detrimental. It could be very hard to do because the whole world is blurry now. If you got your glasses on and you look up and you get outside that little sweet spot of your eyes, what's close up to you, it might make it blurry. But just getting your eyes up, and moving them around a little bit, feel how that makes you feel better. Just recognize right now if you're doing it. If you're driving down the road, be careful. Don't do it driving down the road. But you can do it. You can just look further away, but just kind of get your eyes. Like, we spend so much of our time looking down. We spend so much of our time looking at these phones, and our eyes are constantly looking down all the time. They're all the time looking down. And I don't know my. Hang on, let me see if I think I follow this guy. Let me see if I've got a subscription to him. Yeah. This is neuro-ophthalmology with Dr. Andrew G. Lee on YouTube. You guys want a guy that'll break down your eye function for you? Neuro-ophthalmology. You can look that up, how to spell it, ophthalmology, with Dr. Andrew G. Lee. And I don't know what his deal is. Um, he's a teacher somewhere. I don't know where he's a teacher. Um, but you talk about a guy that will break down eye function for you. He is great. He's great at breaking it down. He'll go down. He's got videos on all the eye problems, and he does a super great job of um, neuro ophthalmology. Let me say it one more time: neuro ophthalmology with Dr. Andrew G. Lee, Lee. He does a fantastic job. He's taught me a ton of stuff about eye movements, pathways, and he gets into it. He gets into it deep and breaks down all of it. I mean, he's basically talking to um, students, to neuro-ophthalmology students, and answering questions for all of them. But you want a guy that really will break it down for you and explain to you what is going on in your brain with your eyes. He's fantastic. I really do like him. I try to watch a lot of his stuff just to learn more and more things about what's going on with your eyes. So if you can get your eyes up, if you have the capacity to get your eyes up, then your brain is still working. And so think about it. You know, I started throwing a football, and I know we're going to get to melatonin here shortly, but I started throwing a ball. Shoot, I don't know. It was probably as soon as I could stand up. Like not much longer after I started standing up did I start throwing a ball. And I started throwing a baseball and I started throwing a football. And I started playing baseball the year before I was in kindergarten. And I don't know what year, I think that's 4 years old or something that I started baseball. And you're 5 turning 6 in kindergarten. So I was 4 turning 5. So that summer I was 4. I was 4 years old when I started playing baseball, which would have been 1975, the summer of 1975 in Jones, Oklahoma. I was a cute little dude too back then. But I was throwing, and I was so advanced on that little league team, and I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you because my dad was a coach, and all those other little kids were just little kids, right? And I was so advanced throwing the ball that there was only one other kid that I remember that could even catch the ball at 4 and 5. And so we used to, they would throw the ball to me, or they would hit the ball to me, and I would have to run to first base. I might be on third base. I have to try to run all the way to first base to tag the guy out. Or if someone was trying to run home, I'd run from first base all the way home to try to tag the guy because I couldn't throw it to the catcher because the catcher couldn't catch. And so in order to get him out, I had to run him down. But I started throwing. I know you're like, what's he talking about? I started throwing when I was just a little guy. And I threw baseballs and footballs from the year before I was in kindergarten until I graduated college. And then I coached football for 6 more years. And I coached wide receivers at New Mexico State. And I would throw hundreds of balls a day at New Mexico State. And then at Texas Tech, I coached on defense, so I didn't throw quite as many, but I still was throwing balls all the time. I stopped coaching in 1999. So it's 25 years ago, 25 seasons ago, I stopped coaching. Now, when you give me a football, I don't have that same range of motion with my shoulder. I don't have the same movement pattern with my shoulder. And I've thrown thousands, tens of thousands of passes and tens of thousands of baseball in my lifetime. And my point to that is that if you don't use it, you lose it, right? That's a true fact. If you're not using that throwing motion, if you're not really getting your whole shoulder involved in it, then what happens is things start shortening down. You change the muscle memory. The brain changes the way that it functions. The muscles change the way that they function. And now if I go play catch with you, I'm going to have to short arm it because I don't have the same throwing motion that I did 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Think about that with our eyes. Think about how often do we just stop for a second and look up? Like, how often do we do that? Because I'll be willing to bet you that there's some days that you might go all day long and never look up. You might spend 98% of the moments looking straight ahead or down, because you're just looking to where you're going, and then you're looking at your phone. You're looking to where you're going, or you're looking at your countertop. You're looking down at your notes. You're looking at something that you're going to write. You're looking down at your crocheting or whatever you're knitting or whatever your thing is that you're doing out there. And we don't exercise. We don't exercise those pathways of moving the eyes up. And what I tried to show over the last couple nights is that behind the scenes, behind those eyeballs, there are pathways working to the cerebellum, to the brain, the muscles that are moving the eyes. That's what Andrew Lee can teach you. The muscles that are moving the eyes have parietal lobe origins or frontal lobe origins. And it's really important if you want to keep those two areas of your brain healthy. It's really important that you get your eyes up. Get your eyes up and look around. Just look up a little bit and see what's up there. It'll make you feel better. You should try it. Okay, go back and watch the shows last 2 nights if you want to learn more about that. Tonight, I thought I'd just get away from that for a bit and just talk about. There was a couple of articles that I came across that I just thought I would share with you about melatonin, because I got the question either this week or last week. Somebody asked me what I thought about that, and my first answer is no. I don't think a person ought to take melatonin. I don't think you ought to mess up your hormones. I've got several ladies right now. Leslie told me a couple weeks ago, she was like, you study all this stuff. How come you haven't figured out hot flashes yet? And so I mentioned that to a couple of my ladies that I've gotten in trouble because I haven't figured out hot flashes. And so they keep coming in. They've come back and they're like, "Hey, did you get that hot flash thing worked out yet?" And I was like, "No, I haven't. I haven't worked on that yet." And they were like, "You're going to be busy as heck if you ever figure that one out, right?" So that's what I got to get that. That's on my list. That's on my list to figure that out. I know the entire planet full of women would be glad if I figured that out, and the entire planet full of men. If I'd be the one to finally come along after all these billions of people that lived on the planet, I'm sure there's been a few people who tried to figure out the hot flashes. There's probably a few of them out there on the internet that have figured it out. I just don't know who they are. But if I was going to pick a system of the body not to mess with, I wouldn't mess with the nervous system. I wouldn't cut your nerve. I wouldn't try to turn your nervous system off. I wouldn't try to burn your nerves, like any of that sort of thing. From a chiropractic standpoint, we don't really think that's a great idea. Like I'm not really excited about the idea of destroying your nervous system in some form or fashion. And the second one I wouldn't mess with is your endocrine system. And your endocrine system is your hormones. And when those hormones are off, your body has a hard time. Men and women together, not just women, men and women together, when those are off, have a hard time. So I want to read this article about, I've got 2 or 3 articles right here. I want to read them. I want to read through some highlighted things just so I can share with you a little bit of information about melatonin. And then I want to talk about the health response of what we should do about it, right? So this first article is Melatonin and Health, Insights of Melatonin Action, Biological Functions, and Associated Disorders. And it comes from Cellular and Molecular Neurobiology, August 2023, volume 46, number 6, pages 2437 through 2458. For you guys that are new to the show, anytime that I bring you an article or I talk to you about stuff, my state board really requires me to share that information where I get it. So I always want to make sure that I read that article title and where it came from so that you know that's where I got it. You can go look it up, Cellular and Molecular Neurobiology, August 2023, volume 46, number 6. This is where I got it. And I can't pronounce these people's names that did the study, but the study cites 273 references, and that's important because there's a lot of research going on in this type of thing. So let's just talk about melatonin. Like, what is melatonin? What is it? Where does it come from? What does it do? Because you may think, well, I heard I should take some melatonin. I'm not sleeping very well. I heard I should take some melatonin. I really think that I saw it on TikTok. I get that a lot now. I got that today with a new patient. She saw it on TikTok and she brought in some. She went to local pharmacy and she got some stuff and she's like, "What do you think about this?" And it's like, okay. So we get that a lot. We see it on Facebook. We watch it on the news. Some friend at work says, "Hey, have you tried melatonin because you can't sleep?" All right, what is it? It is a ubiquitous molecule with wide distribution in nature and is produced by many living organisms. In human beings, the pineal gland is the major site of melatonin production, and to lesser extent by the retina, the lymphocytes, the bone marrow, the gastrointestinal tract, and the thymus. Melatonin is a neurohormone that is released in circulation where it penetrates all tissues of the body. A hormone is a chemical that's released from one part of the body to have some sort of function on another part of the body. That's what a hormone is. Okay? This one is a neurohormone because it's coming from your brain. It's a neurohormone that is released into circulation where it penetrates all the tissues of the body. That's a really big deal, right? It will go through the cell wall and it will penetrate all the tissues of the body, all like from your feet, your knees, your hips, all that, your liver, all of it, your heart, all of it. It penetrates the tissues, all the tissues of the body. Melatonin synthesis and secretion is suppressed by light and enhanced by dark. So as the sun starts going down in the evening, then that little gland is going to start to release melatonin, and that melatonin is going to start to build up in your body. And the darker it gets, the more melatonin you're going to have. So as you move towards darkness, we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about why we sleep in Matthew Walker's book, right? So we should have in nature a real process. Like there should be a progression of melatonin start being delivered when the sun starts going down in the evening and the world starts getting dark. Okay? And then in the morning, light says right here, melatonin synthesis and secretion is suppressed by light and enhanced by dark. Melatonin production and release peak during the dark hours and fall during the day in all species studied. So in the morning, as the light hits us, it's going to start to dampen that melatonin. But at night, it's going to start to make it dark, and we're going to start to increase it. So here's a problem. Here's one of the problems from a health and wellness standpoint that we have is that we have invented electricity, and we have invented the light bulb, and we have invented the phone. As a human species, we did all that stuff. I don't know if we invented electricity, but we discovered electricity, right? We invented the light bulb and we invented the phone, but we discovered electricity and how it works. So what we have done to ourselves is we have increased the light in times that we're supposed to be dark. If you're not sleeping well, that's what this whole point is. If you're not sleeping well, one of the simple things that maybe you could look at is you could look at the idea, are you getting dark? Is it getting dark at night? Or do you have all the lights on in the house? You're sitting in front of the TV, you got your phone in your lap, and your eyes are down, and your head is down, and and then you've got all this light that's on you. Well, if you are, you're suppressing melatonin, and melatonin helps us go to sleep. It helps. It helps to regulate sleep patterns and circadian rhythms. It helps to regulate it. Adenosine is the chemical that is really is going to make us go to sleep. But this helps to regulate these sleep patterns. It acts as an antioxidant and scavenges excessive free radicals generated in the body. And that's going to be super important here in just a minute. When we get back from the break, I want to get deeper into that one. Other benefits of melatonin include immune regulation, reproduction, puberty timing, and mood disorders. So I heard if you go back, you want to listen to Dr. Huberman talk about melatonin. I listened to him the other day talk about this as well. And you got to go back 3 years versus videos. Go to his YouTube channel, go to videos, and then just scroll down to the bottom. It's like the second or third, not the first one, the second or third video, which was 3 years ago. That's why I keep having hope. Keep having hope that, man, 3 years from now, maybe we'll be better at this show. So that's something that, but what he talked about was it's also involved in how and when puberty starts. So it kind of inhibits the process of puberty. And so that's one of the reasons I don't think it's a great idea to get into those things externally. Hey, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. Now, if you're way past puberty, then obviously you don't have to worry about that. That's not really something that you have to worry about. But you start getting into the external hormone. There's the same thing that goes on with the thyroid gland and the thyroid hormone. On Tuesday, on the way to Littlefield, I had a patient or a person call me and wanted to ask me some questions about the thyroid. And she's been working really hard for 13 years trying to figure out her thyroid situation. And I really encouraged her to keep fighting that fight and keep trying to figure that out. Because once you go into that thyroid hormone, now we're starting. What tends to happen is we start to downregulate our own thyroid gland. And I'm not sure about the melatonin, if that will happen as well. But if we start externally bringing in melatonin through a supplement, my intuition tells me that I'm going to start to mess up my own melatonin process. Now, my own melatonin process might be messed up, but why is it messed up? And maybe some of these things that we're going to cover, some of the things that we're going to cover on the other side of the break here, it might explain why it is messed up. That would be something that that you might be interested in. And then what the girl was actually asking me about the thyroid was about thiotrope PMG. And that reminds me, if you guys want your standard process, you can always go to standard process, therock.standardprocess.com, therock.standardprocess.com, and you can get your standard process from us. But that was a conversation that I was having with her about that. So if we're not sleeping well, there's reasons maybe that we're not sleeping well. So if we're not sleeping well, and the thing that we do nowadays is we just jump right into taking a pill for it. And I'm sure that there's a lot of you out there who've taken melatonin and it actually did help. But what's the long-term effects of it? Let's talk about some of that stuff as we get back on the show. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. And we're talking about melatonin tonight. And during the break, I just made the statement that, there may be a lot of people out there who've tried melatonin and it helped them and they went to sleep. Okay? So I'm not I'm not bashing anybody for doing that, but I would present the idea that maybe we could work on some of the healthy things first. But that's not. I just wanted to share. I want what we're trying to do is share what it is, right? Um, so we got into immune regulation, reproduction, puberty. Deficiencies in the production or synthesis of melatonin have been found to be associated with onset of many disorders like breast cancer and neurodegenerative diseases. Melatonin has a promising benefits in treating various diseases like inflammatory, gastrointestinal, cancer, mood disorders, and others. Now, that comes from your medical doctor, as far as I'm concerned, because it's not within my scope of practice to be treating cancer. It's not within my scope of practice to be treating any of it. I don't treat anything at all, really. I'm just trying to give you the give your body what it needs or what it might be deficient in order for your body to do the things that it needs to do. And so, but I will break down here in just a minute how that happens. Melatonin could be used as a potential analgesic drug in diseases associated with pain, and it has quite promising role there. So you can see where they're going with this article, and they're talking about some of that. Um, so let's switch over to see. Traces of melatonin have been identified in plants. The levels in these plant parts are too low for supply to human beings. In plants, melatonin's presence is universal, but concentrations are small, from picograms to micrograms. The highest listed plant source by a large margin is black pepper, but they're saying that that's not going to get it done for you. In plants, melatonin provides reduction of oxidative stress, improves resistance to stress, stimulates the immune system, and is an anti stress agent against drought, toxic chemicals, salinity, heavy metal stress, UV radiation, high and low ambient temperatures, water stress, and light induced stress. That's all the things that melatonin does for the plant, right? But what this article is saying is that getting your melatonin from a plant is going to be really hard because it's just not much of it. The pineal gland lacks a blood brain barrier. It produces but does not store melatonin. Melatonin secretion from the pineal gland is controlled by the suprachiasmatic nucleus as a part of your brain. Due to high lipid and water solubility of melatonin, its distribution is facilitated through most cell membranes, including the blood brain barrier. So you can get it through there. When released into circulation, melatonin easily gains entry into different body fluids, cellular compartments, and tissues all over. Just it's like floods your whole body. The melatonin in circulation can travel to all tissues in the body and easily modulate activities of the brain by crossing the blood-brain barrier. Melatonin is decreased by, and this is important, melatonin is decreased by light, especially bright light of greater than, I don't know what that is, 31, whatever light's measured in, 30 something, and wavelength of 460 to 480, the blue light. That's the 460 to 480 nanometers is blue light. So melatonin is decreased by light, and especially blue light. It's also decreased by ibuprofen and aspirin. It's also decreased by alcohol and smoking. All those vices that people have out there, right? And how many of you are on a low dose aspirin? And it's like, man, I have trouble sleeping. Or you're taking ibuprofen for whatever reason, right? And then you say, well, I have trouble sleeping. Yeah. So those are things that maybe, or that's what I wanted to, that's kind of what I was trying to say a while ago from a wellness standpoint. That's the direction that it's like, hey, look, if light disrupts melatonin and ibuprofen disrupts melatonin and alcohol and smoking disrupt melatonin, then maybe I have other ways of going about it than going to get me some melatonin supplementation. Maybe I can get rid of that. Melatonin is increased by vigorous exercise, and listen to this one, caffeine. Huh. Now, I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all. Cellular and molecular neurobiology said that. So all you caffeine lovers out there, there's it is increased by caffeine. Now, you got to understand that caffeine blocks adenosine, and so then that's a problem because that the adenosine is what causes you to go to sleep. That's the mechanism. So the caffeine actually blocks the receptor, and that creates a problem. But it does increase its melatonin, apparently, according to this article. So that's two things right there. If you're having trouble sleeping, we talked about it about last night or the night before last about getting into a dark room. I got it written up on my board in my adjustment room. Are you getting 7 to 9 hours of good sleep? Is your room dark? Is your room cold? And I've had patients all week long coming into the office and they'll say no, yes, yes. That's their answer. Are you getting good 7 to 9 hours of sleep? No. The majority of the people have come in and said no. And so even my 85-year-old said, I've never had that much sleep in my whole life. I'm like, whoa, okay, well, apparently it's supposed to be good for you, but these guys are rocking at 85, so I don't know if it is or not. But I can tell you that the majority of people that have come into my office this week, the answer is no, they're not getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. You might answer that question for yourself. Are you getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep? And if you're not, would you like to be getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep? And are there some things that maybe you could do that might help your sleep? And making sure that your body has the capacity to release melatonin might be one of them. And so ease up on that ibuprofen. That's just another reason not to take ibuprofen. Ease up on that alcohol and ease up on that smoking. Those are three things. And then stay away from that light. That's what I was talking about. We got to get away from that light. And then exercise. Vigorous exercise, but not at night. That's what Matthew Walker talked about, that. Get your exercise in, but not at night. Because exercising at night is going to get your heart rate up and make it harder for you to go to sleep. Melatonin is a multifaceted hormone exhibiting its effects through endocrine, autocrine, and paracrine modes. It just depends on where it affects. That's what that means. It just means it's released by this gland, but does it affect close glands, faraway glands, other tissues, all that sort of thing? Melatonin directly competes with calcium for binding to the intracellular secondary messenger calmodulin, which may also be responsible for anti-proliferative effects observed in cancers. So just right there, melatonin directly competes with calcium for binding. So if you're taking a calcium supplementation, you may be actually slowing down some of your melatonin. So, and that's another reason that I'm not a big proponent of taking calcium. Based on my study, over and over and over and over again, I just don't think that there's just another reason right there that maybe we don't need all that calcium that everybody tells us that we need. Melatonin directly competes with calcium. Okay, I got that one. Receptors of melatonin are widely distributed and are found in brain, cardiovascular system, the aorta, cardioventricular wall, cerebral and coronary arteries, your gallbladder, your liver, your retina, your parotid gland, your appendix, your colon, your skin, your pancreas, your platelets, your immune cells, your kidney, your brown and white adipose tissue, breast and ovarian granulosa cells, epithelial cells of the prostate, fetal kidney, and placental myometrium. That means that if it has a receptor, then it can use melatonin. And what this article is saying is that all those places have melatonin receptors. It's just throughout your entire body. It's a strong antioxidant and is directly responsible for scavenging of free radicals. Melatonin binds to the transition metals, preventing the formation of hydroxy radicals. Melatonin, being highly concentrated in mitochondria, protects proteins, lipids, and DNA from oxidative damage caused by free radical stress. I'm going to read these 3 sentences and then we're going to move to another article. Actually, right after this. The antioxidant role of melatonin is paramount importance for mitochondrial activities where free radical production is a natural phenomenon because of cellular respiration. And we've talked about that lots of times on the show. Cellular respiration inside the mitochondria, every time we make an ATP, we make a free radical. So we've got a lot of free radicals. So we need antioxidants to balance those free radicals, to keep those free radicals from attacking the mitochondria or causing damage in the cell. That's very important. Another antioxidant is melatonin. And so we need it. We need it to be functioning. We need that gland to be functioning. We need our body to be responding to it. So one of the things that we are doing to ourselves to decrease our mitochondria function, and you guys know how what a big fan I am of mitochondria. And that's why we take our fish oil, is to make sure that we protect our mitochondria. Here's another reason to protect our mitochondria. And here's another reason. So map those things out together in what we're saying. The antioxidant role of melatonin, not the sleep aid role of melatonin, but the antioxidant role of melatonin is paramount importance for mitochondrial activities where free radical production is a natural phenomenon because of cellular respiration. It's important to protect the mitochondria. It's important to have melatonin. It's important that we understand what decreases melatonin. Blue light, alcohol, smoking. Those things that we just went over that decrease our melatonin. And ibuprofen and aspirin, that was the other one right there. Okay. Apart from its antioxidant role, melatonin plays a prime role not only in regulating respiratory chain complexes 1 and 4, but also prevents the mutation and deletion of mitochondrial DNA. That's a big deal. It really is a protective of the mitochondria. Melatonin prevents DNA damage. Mitochondria have their own DNA, so melatonin helps prevent DNA damage. It has a diverse role and mostly affects the brain. It regulates the circadian rhythm, seasonal adaptation, and puberty development. That's why you want it to be internal, you want to be run by your innate intelligence, and you want it to be functioning properly. Melatonin is associated with memory by regulating memory formation by directly affecting hippocampal neurons. Melatonin controls posture and balance of the body. That's in that cerebellum. So there's some cerebellar activity going on. Melatonin has neuroprotective, blood pressure lowering, modulating pain, vascular retinal osteoblast differentiation, seasonal reproductive, ovarian physiology, anti-tumor, and antioxidant properties. It's a big sentence right there. Wow, ovarian physiology? Your cycle might be messed up because your melatonin's messed up. And you see how all these things fit together. You see why it's so important that you get the system to run properly because of how many different things it has to do, how many different areas of the body melatonin affects. And then we're going to just come in and just take a melatonin pill from the outside and not to realize, man, I just need to go to sleep. Well, you're also affecting your ovaries and your retina and your osteoblast differentiation, your bone cells that make new bone, right? Melatonin has been shown to be very helpful in treating neurological disorders such as Parkinsonism, Alzheimer's disease, brain edema, and traumatic brain injury, depression, cerebral ischemia, gliomas, and phenylketonuria. So that's from again, that's a medical doctor thing that's going to be treating those types of situations. And now we get into I want to switch articles right here, and I want to show you I want to show you a picture because I think it helps just to understand the picture for a second. And this was in, let's see what article I'm in. Yeah, this is melatonin synthesis in and uptake by mitochondria, implications for disease cells and dysfunctional mitochondria. Future Medicinal Chemistry, January 5th, 2021, volume 13, number 4, pages 335 and 339. This is from Long School of Medicine, San Antonio, Texas. Cellular mitochondria are essential in a permanently diseased state such that aged individuals, I'm going to say it again, cellular mitochondria are essentially in a permanently diseased state such that individuals displaying an increased vulnerability to cancer development. Okay, glucose gets turned into pyruvate. If we have oxygen, pyruvate goes into acetyl-CoA in the mitochondria. If we don't have oxygen, it goes into lactic acid. And that it ferments itself into lactic acid. Okay, so it's coming through here. And now what this article is going to tell us by looking at this picture is that we take glucose, and this is what's called glycolysis, and it's happening inside your cells. You're changing glucose into pyruvate, and you're changing that into acetyl-CoA, and that's going to go through the Krebs cycle, and you're going to get the synthesis of mitochondrial melatonin, which is a potent mitochondrial antioxidant. You're making your melatonin inside your mitochondria that are, and that is protecting, that's just a local area of protection. And melatonin is also highly concentrated in the mitochondria. It's the pineal gland is where they found it. That's where it was discovered, but it's highly concentrated in the mitochondria. Mitochondrial melatonin is not of pineal origin. It is synthesized in the mitochondria itself. So we have, this is one of the beautiful things, I think, is that anytime we have something going on in the body has a protective mechanism built into it. God knows that whenever we make one ATP, we also make one free radical. God knows that. It's not a surprise. It's like, oh no, dang, I wish I would have known that. No, that's not how that works. God knows that. So we got to balance those free radicals, those little irritated molecules. So we have inside the mitochondria, we have a protective mechanism in this melatonin, not to mention the other antioxidants that are there. We just have this one area. So this is synthesized in the mitochondria to protect against the ATP and the free radicals, not the ATP, but the free radicals that are made. Normal cells cannot survive without the ATP energy provided by mitochondrial respiration. You can't work if you don't have power. Normal cells can't survive. That is our fundamental thing at the Rock Health and Wellness Centers. Take your fish oil. Take your fish oil, protect your mitochondria, keep your cells alive. Normally, this glycolysis produces pyruvate, which is metabolized to acetyl-CoA by the enzyme pyruvate dehydrogenase. That's not important. The acetyl-CoA makes an important contribution to the Krebs cycle that benefits the generation of ATP. That's what I just said, okay? What does that mean to you? Well, let me stop for a second because I think that's complicated. And I didn't mean to get super complicated. I was just trying to share with you. Glucose is sugar, right? Now, we know that the brain needs glucose, oxygen, and excitability. The brain does well on glucose. That's the whole idea. We're not anti-glucose people. We just want complex carbohydrates to slowly time release our glucose so that we don't increase our insulin level. You guys ought to go back and watch Justin Richards last night. He was eating a double scoop of ice cream. And And it's like, hey, I'm going to test my blood sugar with this ice cream. And he knew dang well what it was going to do. But it spiked the crap out of his blood sugar, and it lasted for several hours with his blood sugar being up. So, but we do need some glucose one way or the other. If we go ketogenic, we're going to have to change it, and we change the mechanism just a little bit to try to get it through to the whole pathway. But basically what we're saying is that your body is taking this glucose in the cell and it's making energy. And there's a process of how it makes the energy. And that's what happens in a normal cell. But if that cell gets damaged, then it can't pass the glucose through to pyruvate, through to acetyl-CoA, and it can't make that happen, then it's going to do what's called the Warburg effect. When pyruvate is not metabolized into acetyl-CoA, it undergoes fermentation to lactate in the cytosol. This alternative pathway of pyruvate metabolism is known as the Warburg effect. Since pyruvate does not enter the mitochondria, mitochondrial ATP synthesis is depressed. Warburg-type metabolism, however, compensates for this by rapidly, albeit inefficiently, synthesizing ATP in the cytosol. But it's only associated with pathological cells. The cells are going to die. The cells are going to die if we can't keep this process working. And that's one of the things that melatonin does inside the cell, is it keeps the free radicals from attacking the mitochondria and allows the process to work like it's supposed to. We got to be able to breathe. Basically, it's respiration. We've got to be able to breathe inside the cell. And it's very important that we get our melatonin. That's why that's why these guys are coming at it from the standpoint that we can treat all of these different diseases. And this thing will go through the whole, it'll start breaking down. I'll switch it. But it'll start breaking down melatonin in the brain, and then melatonin in diabetes, melatonin in cancer, melatonin in obesity, melatonin in autoimmunity, melatonin in sepsis, melatonin in mood disorders. And I know it's going to say, basically what all those things are going to say is that the same effects that melatonin has on the body is why it works for all that. Let's just take sepsis. Generally, microbial pathogens like bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other parasites cause it. Melatonin supplementation has been effective in treating septic shock because it's going to get in there and give your cells a better chance to make ATP, and it's going to regulate some of those other inflammatory markers that's going on. That's what's really going to happen inside the body. So there's a lot of things you can do to treat it. Other infections, pain, like there's a bunch of things melatonin helps with, right? But let's get back to the fundamentals of it before we run out of time on the show. You're not sleeping well. You want to try to sleep well. You think, well, I should take some melatonin. What you also could do is get away from blue light, decrease your ibuprofen, make sure you decrease your alcohol, get rid of your cigarettes and your smoking. Those are some of those things. And you could do some vigorous exercise sometime in the day, like we talked about to start the show. Those guys did some exercise. Get after exercising right there. And then there's another thing you might could do is have a cup of coffee early in the day, not late in the day, because then it'll mess up the other systems right there. That would be something you might want to try before you jump into taking melatonin. And then if you're going to treat it, then you're going to have a doctor on your team that you can at least consult if you're going to try to treat with some of that stuff. Okay, that's all we got for you tonight. That's a little bit about melatonin. I hope it is worthy of your time. I hope you guys have a great night. We'll be back here tomorrow night at 6 o'clock right here on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio. You guys have a great night.